You know, about 40% of Americans will make a New Year's resolution this year, but the success rate of keeping those resolutions not so hot. So our guests this morning are hoping to make sticking to those resolutions a little easier. And up next, we're talking about organization. It is a popular resolution, and let's face it, a lot of us could use a lot more of it. Joining us now with some tips to clear the clutter, the president of Get Organized, Lorraine Brock. Lorraine, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about, you know, it can be overwhelming when you first get started on trying to organize and declutter the home. Where do you start?
Well, what I don't want you to do first is have a reunion with your clutter.
Okay.
That is something that most people, when they try to tackle a project, they want to go in there and they want to reminisce about things. So the very first thing I would say to do is actually get about a dozen-size, banker-size boxes or laundry baskets.
Right.
And start the process of sorting. If you start going in there and just touching one item and deciding if you want it or not, it's going to take forever.
Okay, so you want to get them into categories first and then start working on that. All right, so let's talk about decluttering and things we need to do before we throw things away. And so I guess it all starts with what you said, putting these things in various categories and boxes, and that'll help, right?
Correct. So here I have what I brought is my box of clutter.
That's your clutter for it.
And I have just labeled 3 boxes here, and whatever you have in your home will have different categories.
Okay,
you may have all kinds of things. So toys would go with toys, and papers would go with papers,
my papers
and
would just keep going.
Media stuff. I mean, don't decide on making a pile of DVDs and you know, CDs.
Right.
Just put all media into one box.
And so many CDs and DVRs.
That's right. So that way, don't make it complicated. Just sort.
Okay, so at what point is it good to start getting rid of things?
Well, obvious is if you run out of room.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, that's number one.
When the house is full, when the closet's full, when the game room's full, all those kinds of things.
That's right. But really good transitional times in your life. If you're moving, it's a great transition time. But when you're running out of space is a really great time. I mean, you don't have to declutter and purge things if you want to get organized, as long as you have this space. So don't let that be a fear to get organized. All
right. You know, a lot of families have kids, obviously. And how is it good to get the kids involved, and how do you get them involved?
Well, play as many games as you can. For example, set the timer and give them a pillowcase and let them pick up the clutter around them. But you also want to do things. So over here, I have, let's just say you have a child that has tons of stuffed animals and they are really not willing to let any go. Set some boundaries. Say if you have 10, pick your 5 favorite. And then get some things like this is actually a bean bag that you can buy. I bought this particular one at Walmart, and you can get them online. And what kid doesn't like a bean bag?
Sure.
Put their stuffed animals in there, get it organized. Make sure you do it with them, not for them.
Right, have them participate, then they'll be maybe a little more apt to keep their stuff in there and those kinds of things. Okay, so how do we, once we kind of get organized, how do we stay that way? Because it's real easy to kind of fall back into those old habits.
It is. So there's a couple ways that I would really encourage the viewers is, number one, have your kids and yourself back up bedtime a little bit and start leaving you 30 minutes at night to pick up and put up.
Right.
That is the number one thing. But I also feel that we are just so overcommitted. So in 2019, I would highly recommend, if your schedule looks like this, and this is what you are actually, there you go. If you are actually looking at this as your life, every single day you are maxed out, something's got to give. And so I always say, when you say yes to something, you automatically say no to something else. So make sure you're really saying yes to the important things.
Yeah, and so at what point do we enlist the help of a professional like yourself?
Good question. I would say if you have promised yourself year after year that you are going to finally get organized, would be a great opportunity to do that. Also, if it's affecting your work, your family, a lot of marriages and relationships suffer because really the home is a byproduct of what's going on in the relationship. So a lot of times if you get that under control, it will affect for the positive every other area of your life.
Okay, so yeah, it really helps to get in there and get organized. Real quick question, because some people look at their room and they get overwhelmed by it. So just start with small things and then, or do you want to just dive in and get busy with it?
I would say start with your smallest room first, because that's going to be the easiest. You're going to see results the fastest, and it's going to motivate you to move forward.
Great tip. All right, Lorraine Brock, thanks for being with us. Coming up, tips on how you can save money in 2019.